We'll call the regular meeting of December 22nd, 2009 to order. We're going to ask Father Ruben Valenzuela from Our Lady of Guadalupe Church in El Centro to lead us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
We stand before you, Almighty God, conscious of our human limitations, but aware that we gather in your name. Remain with us and enlighten our hearts. Give us light and strength to know your will, to make it our own, and to live it in our lives. Guide us by your wisdom, support us by your power, for you are God, sharing the glory of the Father and the Son. You desire justice for all. Enable us to uphold the rights of others. Do not allow us to be misled by ignorance or corrupted by fear or favor. Unite us to yourself in the bond of love and keep us faithful to all that is true. As we gather in your name, may we temper justice with love so that all our decisions may be pleasing to you and earn the reward promised to the good and faithful servant, where you live and reign with the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Garber, do you have anything to report from out of closed session?
Yes, sir. In closed session, the board took action to direct its litigation counsel in the QSA coordinated cases to take all necessary actions to preserve the board's rights with regard to the QSA coordinated cases, which includes the filing of a notice appeal and, if necessary, requesting a stay of the judge's ruling pending appeal. Essentially, what the board has done is preserved its rights to challenge the ruling on appeal once it's finalized, to renegotiate the contract, and to do any other option that would be before it at that time.
Mr. Garber, would you pull the board on that vote, please?
I don't think I do that. I think Gloria would do that, yes.
Director Abadi? Yes. Director Menville?
Yes.
Director Hanks?
Yes.
Director Mendoza?
Yes.
Director Sanchez?
Yes.
Is there any other action to report?
No, sir.
Okay, at this time we have the United Way 2010 campaign presentation.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the public, I'd like to just make a couple of comments. I met with Mr. Mark Schmidt, I guess it was earlier this year, and he introduced me to the United Way of Imperial Valley. I had been involved with campaigns in Riverside, Orange County, LA County, and you know, we were talking about the great need for the United Way services and funds, and Mark told me that IID had been one of, or was the largest contributor at a little over $20,000 last year, and I thought we could do a lot better. So I enlisted the services of Mr. Campbell, who's not only done campaigns in California, but in Kansas and in a lot of other places. And Mike put together a team of Tony DeZago, Bertha Ramos, Diana Rosas, Bob Shetler, Liz Villa, and the challenge was to double the amount to something over $40,000. So I'll let Mike talk a little bit about that.
As you can see, there are several green shirts in the audience today. What we did with the committee is we took the population of the workforce in the Imperial Valley and divided that up into teams as best we could, being geographic and by function as best as possible. And we came up with 12 teams, and for each team we had 2 team captains. And the objective for the captains was to deliver the message, ask for solicitations, for payroll deductions or other, cash contributions as the employees would see fit. And the challenge that we gave them was we would like to have 100% response on the envelopes that we were handing out to staff. And of course, if there's an opportunity to get donations, that would be a wonderful thing to do. And by challenging the teams to do so, we offered up that the winning team would receive a pizza party for the entire team. And actually, for the team captains that managed to do the work to get the closest to having 100% of the envelopes returned and donations would also receive a $50 gift certificate for each of the team captains. I will announce the team captains, but I wanted to make note that the winning team not only had 100% of their envelopes returned, they had 100% donation, which was far exceeding anything that I had imagined. But I would like to, bring up the team captains, and then we would like to present a check to Mr. John Yanni from the United Way. Is representation of the donations from the employees of the Imperial Irrigation District. So the team captains would be Richard Diaz, Joe Patterson, Maria Valdera, John Rooney, Susie Carrillo, Carla Maldonado, Carol Loop, Irene Torres, Olivia Alcarez, Scott Harding, Liz Villa, Natalie Merrill, Fernando Gutierrez, Bevelyn Townsend, Linda Garduno, Rosa Huerto, Silvia Vizcarra, Thelma Aguilar, Cristela Biaga, Maria Leon, and Lisa Zacaras. So if they could come forward, all the green shirts that are here, if they could come forward, and if we could bring the check. Mr. Yanni, if you come forward, please. We in the district would like to donate, recognize that the donation that we are providing to the United Way this year not only exceeded the expectation of $40,000, but is a grand total of $76,670.
Who made the check? I don't know. Big bank, cash it out.
Try putting that in the ATM.
Yeah. Great job.
That's, and in today's economy, that's really cool.
Back to work.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. That was a remarkable job. I will move on to public comments. Please limit your time to 5 minutes or less.
Cliff Hurley. First, I want to congratulate Jim for running a tight ship this last year. Some of it was kind of ruling behind closed doors, and I object to that, and I'll bring up one instance. You can't set goals for the board in closed session, and you did that, and shame on general counsel for allowing you to do that. And I hope that this coming year, you don't have so many secret meetings with all the farmer groups that are close to the public. And I'm talking to you, Anthony, because you thought they were open, and they're not open. I tried to get into one and got booted out. So they are closed meetings. They're not, the public's not invited. And I think you're getting too close to the issue. The arrogance and insolence of the growers way back from the beginning has been exceedingly great. I'm talking about in the Bass Brother era, I'm talking about Don Cox era, I'm talking about Steve Elmore areas. There is a quiet assumption that they know it all, and landowner growers really don't understand government that well. And the real problem that I see now is that you're bellying up with the landowner growers on the issue of denying industrial water, non-ag industrial water to those beneficial users. And when if this thing comes unglued and you're back to square one on dealing with water, they're going to say that IID was not a good steward on the handling of the water to capricious and arbitrarily deny non-ag development water, and it's a real problem. And so I look forward to a change in that area. I don't know how. I think you guys all have your mind made up, and so maybe the change comes outside of this board. But I think it's a real problem that what you've done. I don't see any move to get away from it. There was a better way to do it. There still is a better way to do it. Case in point, one of the issues is allowing development. On the problem that you had with the geothermal, all you had to do was recognize the Cal Energy, the use of water on the Cal Energy as the regular conservation level, and in that process not allow other people to put up geothermal units that go over that. And so you deal with it on a basis of reasonable use. And you're not doing that. So you're not dealing with regular conservation, you're not dealing with reasonable use. You're using a very capricious and arbitrary landowner, arrogant way to deal with water. And I think it's so bad that of all the users, only one of them has been picked out. I think John Pierre still supports this water park going in, and I think a lot of people would say that geothermal energy or any kind of industry certainly should have as great a chance to develop in the Imperial Valley as a water park. And for you to single out industry as the one area that you're going to deny water to, effectively deny water to, is very bad. Thank you.
President Hanks, members of the board, council. I smile when I look at on October 7th, 2003, public comments, and the first person to comment in 2003 was Cliff Hurley. I was going to address the tentative finding of the court in Sacramento and what it seems to me to be a responsibility on the part of the board, apart from their litigation counsel. And if you read, I sat through the court as I was up there, and David Osias proffered that there were all these meetings of the IID in closed session after October 2nd, when the board voted to pass the QSA, and that they were appraised of what was going on. Well, the record only shows that there was one meeting on October 7th, and the closed session notes say, reviewed the performance of the general manager, internal auditor, addressed several lawsuits, and confer with negotiators on possible transfer of conserved water. So it seems to me that, I'll go through the rest of this, but there's a responsibility on the part of the board as the trustees for the water that to see that we spent money wisely when if the requisite requirement of due process, which is not a secret, wasn't followed, why wasn't it followed, and who was responsible for not following it? One of the issues in the tentative ruling was that there was no drafts of the documents circulated. I've heard that Andy Horn had a draft, and that somehow that draft got to the Imperial County, and that existed before the vote. If that occurred and a draft was denied the record, who was in charge of the record that prevented that draft from getting in there? And the reason they probably would have not wanted the draft in because of the changes that occurred. So it goes, I have an issue with your counsel being conflicted, but that's not your issue. But the court reasonably asked some questions that you should be looking at. In one place, there is no evidence in the record that either the IID board, this is on page 13 of the tentative ruling, and my experience with the judge is he hardly ever changes anything. There's no evidence in the record that either the IID board or the public ever had an opportunity to see or comment on all the substantive matters and provisions of the contract. ABC, that's something that should have been done. If there was negotiations going on after the vote, you've got 4 of the 5 board members are living, one of them sits on the board. Was that going on? If that was going on, it's malfeasance on the part, it seems to me, on the part of the attorneys, because they're putting you in jeopardy. How many millions of dollars have we spent on the QSA? If you prevail and it's done. It's a contract. But if you don't do things right when you set it up, you're creating a possibility of a big waste of money. And a little later on page 14, it says the court additionally, at the bottom of the page, the court additionally finds that the lack of any draft of the JPA in the administrative record at the time of the IID board meeting and the timing of the DFG director show that material portions of the QSA JPA were still being negotiated after October 2nd, approved by October 2nd approval by the IID board. Then we come to the document that was approved. Now, you're sort of caught in a problem. You guys want to appeal it, but I've noticed that the state hasn't made any appropriations for the $9 billion fix-it for the sea in the last few years. I think we discussed that. You've discussed that. I've discussed it. The structure that the court says is unconstitutional gives the state and a member of the commission to decide to spend money a veto. The veto is to be reasonable. Nobody talks about what causes that. So you guys are at jeopardy if the deal goes through as constitutional of anybody ever funding it. All it does is it absolves you of liability, but it doesn't absolve me of bad air next to the sea, or Calipat or Westmoreland or Brawley or Bombay Beach. So I don't know. I thought that Melissa McKeith for Quattro de Mar put it very, very well. They said, and their position's different than our position has been, but I think it was well said. We don't really care about the governance of the IID. We don't really care if the water's transferred, but what we want to have is a responsible party be able to stand up and fix the sea. Responsible solvent party. Well, we know this, the state has a bonding problem. Are they going to pass a $9 billion bond that would have to go to the voters? I mean, are they going to do it? I don't think so. So the deal, and we also had a comment at trial where San Diego said, well, we could put up more money if we had to. You got a real, and how much have we spent to get where we are with an incomplete deal that the court may have found unconstitutional without us ever fighting about it, because that's one of the jobs of the court, is to look at the contract. They might have just found that the provisions of the contract were against the Constitution. You might want to look at, were there cover-ups on the actions of the district? Were the board meetings, the closed session, what was discussed in the closed session? Were they informed? You can ask Stella, you can ask Andy Horn, you can ask Bruce Kuhn, what did they know? And if your attorneys were not shooting straight with you, you might go find attorneys that do shoot straight with you. Because there's a lot of really fine attorneys in the state of California, and they're not all conflicted. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. No further comments. We'll move on to board comments. We'll start with Director Abadi.
Well, thank you. For the record, I continue to have real concerns about the responsibility for the Salton Sea, but I want to see instead of the actual judgment, final judgment, and act accordingly to what it says. I voted with the board today because we were advised by legal counsel this action had to be taken in advance of the final decision. As one director, I intend to keep my options open and my vote open to any eventuality as circumstances dictate. Thanks.
Director
No
Mendoza.
comment. No comment.
Director Sanchez.
No comment. No
Director-
comment, thank you.
Pardon?
No comment.
No comment. We'll move over to General Manager. You have any comments?
No comments.
Legal, you have any comments?
Yes, one brief comment. About a week ago, the board approved a settlement with San Diego concerning the QSA water transfer price. That settlement, there were two settlement documents, a settlement agreement and a fifth amendment to the San Diego IID transfer agreement. San Diego County Water Authority Board also approved that settlement last Thursday. We approved it on Tuesday, and the documents have been signed, which means sometime in the next 9 days, San Diego will pay to IID $6 million to cover the dispute with regard to water prices in 2009 and 2010. And unless the transfer is stopped between now and October 1st of 2010, they'll pay $50 million, some of which of that 50 could be paid back if the transfer stoppage, if the transfer is stopped at a later date based on a schedule. But in any event, that settlement has been approved and that money will be coming in.
Okay. We'll move on to informational agenda. Item number 1, water.
You have Mr. Ross.
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman, an update on the water cards. I think monthly we've been trying to keep you up to date. As you know, there was a November 15th deadline to submit water cards, and the process that was approved by the board at that time was that we would, any water cards that come in after the 15th, we would continue to process them. Anybody that doesn't have it and orders their water after the 15th, we give them one more irrigation and once again remind them that they need a new water card. So far we've received out of the 6,500 that we expect 5,000 water cards. Of those we've processed, certified about 3,800 of them. So at this point in time, things seem to be, the cards are coming in. It's taking our staff a while to keep up with the backload because you got to kind of check out some of the plots and make sure that we got the right location data and stuff on each of them. But I think we're moving in the right direction, but it probably will take us another couple of months before everything's caught up and all the cards that have been submitted have been processed. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
What are you doing about the, I know some guys that haven't even turned a water card in. So how are you handling those people?
Well, they wouldn't, like I say, we would give somebody that does not have an irrigation since the 15th, one irrigation, and then remind them again to get in their water card. But otherwise, they're only entitled to one irrigation without a card.
Okay, but I know that there's people that you've run 2 irrigations on that haven't turned water cards in.
Yeah, we're checking on those. We think that that might be an instance of where, somebody got a watering just around the 15th, and, it was pretty much inadvertent if they got any additional waterings after that. But the direction to the staff is that you only get one field watered without a card after the 15th.
Okay, Carlos, you and I had a discussion in the hallway on this yesterday.
Just one comment I do want to make. The system's been set up so that it tracks the stages of the water card's been received, processed, returned, and so forth. Currently, if there is no water card in the system, the water coordinator gets a flag, says no water card, only one additional order allowed. During that second week of after the 15th, we might have had one or two or three coordinators not understand clearly that have to be followed. We've been reiterating, we've been visiting with division coordinators, division superintendents, make sure that they understand that. But that is in the system, and it's being followed as much as I believe is possible right now.
Okay, Mr. Villalon, what is it that the coordinators do not understand?
Well, the transition, they may not have gotten the message or may not have understood that absolutely no irrigation, no extra irrigations unless they were approved by me or a superintendent after conferring with the water user that they are going to be coming in and working with us.
So what is the next deadline for the water carts to be in before we stop allowing them to have water?
Well, the next issue is if somebody did receive the extra order and is not working with us in an honest way, then we would just not give them their water.
What is the cutoff date on that?
Well, these are rolling in, and as each individual, as we work with each individual, and whether they're being, again, open with us and honest with us and working out the water card issues, we would either allow them or an additional water or not. It just depends on the individual and when they're irrigated. This is a period that the irrigations are extended.
What is the date where all water carts have to be in for 2010?
Well, there's no date. The only date is November 15th. And if the water card or the water user does not want to cooperate, we would not give him additional water.
If, say, January 15th, that's 60 days from November the 15th, if you still don't have all the water carts processed, what are you going to do at that time?
Well, we will be keeping you advised of that.
No, what are you going to do if our water customers know that they have to have the water carts in, and we gave the deadline of November the 15th, say January 15th, it's 60 days. What if they do not turn them in?
Well,
what are you going to do about that?
Those fields at the system flags that have no water card and have had their additional irrigation, because it does also inform the water coordinator of that. And if they're not cooperating with us, they will not get the water on that field.
So is that the message you're giving to the water customers?
That's correct.
Okay. Can you keep us informed on that, please?
We'll do that on a weekly basis,
the board
give you
updated.
numbers. And
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carlos, I have another question. Mr. Ross said you had 6,500 gates, and there's 5,000 been turned in, and of that, 3,800 are good. So that means there's 2,700 water cards out there that you still haven't gotten. That's basically 41%.
Roughly, because we used to operate under the plot basis. We adjusted the system to conform with the water conservation program where we would follow each field. So depending on how they split or merge plots for water apportionment or water conservation purposes, we would have more or less 6,500 fields versus the old plots.
Okay, well, I just, and I told Dr. Brady this, and of course I called Mr. Ross last week, that there's been farmers that turned in things in a timely manner and did as they were supposed to do. There's other farmers who haven't, and now I'm being asked, why are you allowing these guys to run for the second time when they know what the rules and regulations are? Mm-hmm. So hopefully you get this thing worked out. Because I've told some guys that January 1, they don't get no more water. And still it's talking about the 15th, but January 1's a new water year. I know that we're being lenient because we got this 240,000 acre-foot underrun. We need to get as much credit as we can, but starting January 1's the start of a new water year.
Right.
There isn't any reason for these guys not to turn the cards in. It's just a single front page. The SDI is off. So,
And that was my question, Director Menville. Come January 1, are you going to cut off, are you not going to give them additional water if they don't turn in the water cards?
Well, if next week, if they don't have the water card and had their additional irrigation, they can't get another
So-
irrigation until they get their water card in. So it depends on where they roll in their next irrigation after the additional one. It could be Saturday.
Okay. So, all right, I understand.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you.
All right, we'll move to item number 2, energy.
Mr. Rajan.
I just have one item, and that is the draft of the integrated resource plan, I believe, has been passed on to each board member for your review. Once you've had a chance to review it, we'd like to schedule a briefing of the major.
Ray, I have mine. I'll read it New Year's Eve.
Okay, we can count on that. And we'd like to set up a work session with you where we could review it in some detail. And then we'll bring it on after you've looked at it. We'll bring it on to the ECAC for their review before we publish the final version.
Okay, we'll move to the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Is there any items that need to be pulled? If not, please vote. All right, we'll move on to item 16, action agenda. Appointment of IID Treasurer for calendar year 2010.
Well, I guess that's my item. Mr. President and members, this is the, as you'll notice on the staff report, page 63, there's this annual government code requirement that the district give the authority of IID treasurer. We recommend Maria Caldera.
Move to appoint
Second.
Maria Caldera as IID Treasurer for 2010.
I'll second that.
Dr. Brady, is the treasurer under direction of the CFO or the general manager? CFO?
CFO.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Please vote. Item 17, clarification of funding for the Calexico Enterprise Zone.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board will recall that we appeared some months ago for for an annual funding contract with the Calexico Enterprise Zone. In comparing that arrangement to the one we have in force with the Imperial Valley Enterprise Zone, we find that we're year to year with Calexico, but we have a multi-year arrangement with the Imperial Valley Enterprise Zone. So what we're asking is that your board direct the General Counsel to execute a memorandum of understanding with Calexico that mirrors the one we have in effect with the Imperial Valley Enterprise Zone.
Mr. Kelly, what would be the amount on a multi-year basis per year?
Well, it's the one with Imperial Valley Enterprise Zone is for 14 years at an annual contribution of $60,000 a year.
So what are we looking at for Calexico Enterprise Zone? What's your recommendation?
What we're recommending is that you do an identical agreement with Calexico to the one you already have with what was formerly the Brawley Enterprise Zone and is now known as the Imperial Valley Enterprise Zone.
So it would be for $60 a year.
It would be for considerably more than that.
Not $60. I'm sorry.
14 years? Did you say 14 years?
The one with Imperial Valley Enterprise Zone is structured for 14 years. March 1st, 2007 through February 28, 2021.
So what you're asking us to do is to approve one for $60,000 a year for a 14-year, or just go multi-year, or put in the number of years?
We're actually requesting that your board direct General Counsel to prepare an MOU similar to the one that he did for the Imperial Valley Enterprise Zone.
I so move on your recommendation.
I'll second it.
Does that contract have any off-ramps?
Well, if I prepare it.
Okay.
We just discussed
the one
that.
with the Imperial Valley.
It's been a while since I've seen those MOUs. I do have some concern about a 14-year arrangement to pay substantial funds, but I'm sure that we can set something up that'll satisfy the board's concerns.
Yeah. Do we have any established arrangement for them to come and give us updates on progress?
Yeah, Diane Kaysen is who represents the Imperial Valley Enterprise Zone, and also Daniel Fitzgerald. He's coming around there, represents Calexico. They've updated us in the past.
Yeah, they usually come on a quarterly basis and present us with an update.
Yeah, we don't have anything set in stone, but we come on a regular basis. Obviously, we have our meetings with our joint our Joint Powers Authority, which Anthony and Director Menville do sit on. But I mean, if you want us to come, and right now we're coming about annually, but we can come on a more regular basis if needed.
Semi-annually, depending on what's going on.
Okay.
Things get really heated up, come quarterly.
Hopefully, we can come more often and have more
often,
news.
Yeah.
Yeah, President Hanks, I might add that on the Brawley or the Imperial Valley Enterprise Zone, the one that Diane Kaysen heads, and also the one that Daniel heads in Calexico, is funded a third. Yours is funded a third by Calexico, a third by Imperial County, and a third by the IID.
Correct.
The Imperial Valley Enterprise Zone is funded a third by the city of Brawley, a third by the county, and a third by the IID. And the reason they go 14 or 15 years is that's the life span of an enterprise zone through the state of California.
Right, and the Calexico one expires also in 2021, but in October.
Okay.
Any other questions? Please vote. Okay, item 18, acknowledge receipt of internal auditing's report. We'll take A first, Imperial Water Store Inventory.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
On October 29th, we audited the Water Department's inventory that is in Imperial in the warehouse. Involved in that was the Superintendent of Materials, Resources, and Dispersal, one Finance Department representative, one Water Department representative, two Purchasing Section representatives, more than a dozen warehouse employees, and myself. In our report in 2008 in inventory, Imperial Water Store dated October 17, 2008, we made the following recommendation. Consider, for the purpose of generating inventory count sheets, enhancing R3T code MB52 display warehouse stocks of material on hand or other relevant R3 report to filter out all material items marked for deletion and reported with zero on hand, both in quantity and in dollars. And I report that that recommendation was successfully implemented and that we saw that that saved approximately 2 hours on the count this year in October 2009. The inventory in Imperial for the Water Department consists of more than 1,100 different items, including number 2 motor diesel, propane gas, and bulk motor oil. Those 3 items were not counted as part of this inventory as they are the responsibility of the fleet services section, not the warehouse. As you can see in the tables there, it'd be on your page 67 that our ending balance this year was $765,348. There's a breakdown on that between the fuel and oil and the other supplies and materials. In every way that we can measure the accuracy of this, it's outstanding. The staff in the warehouse is doing an outstanding job of managing and accounting for the materials of the water department that they have custody of. Are there any questions with this report?
No question.
Management accepts your report, your audit?
Yes, they accepted it as is.
Okay. And you're satisfied with the work being done and so forth? It has your seal of approval?
We are very satisfied with the job that the warehouse staff is doing managing the water department's inventory on hand.
Mr. President, I move to acknowledge the receipt of the Imperial Water Store audit report for the inventory.
Second it.
Any other questions? Please vote. All right. Item B.
Thank you. Our next audit was the Energy Department's surplus inventory. This inventory was taken on September 15th and 16th, 2009, and it was a combined effort of Energy Department's engineering section, substation construction and maintenance, operations section, materials planning unit, and internal audit. This inventory consists of large and typically high dollar value equipment such as transformers, circuit breakers, capacitor banks, regulator switches, and switch boards. This material is stored at two locations. Imperial Valley, it's stored on Dogwood at what's called Area 51, or the Energy Department's training facility in a separate fenced area. And in La Quinta, it's stored inside of Avenue 58 substation. Now, in our first time we ever reported on this Energy Department surplus inventory was in our report dated November 18, 2003. And I quote from that report. During the summer of 2002, the former Power Department had boldly purchased approximately $12 million in materials without having any real use for them. And as of the date of the report, that being November 18, 2003, $8,958,797 of that is still available for use in current and future projects. Now, of course, there was some of that used over the years, and at the beginning of our count, the balance between the Imperial and the La Quinta sites, $1,489,801, meaning that of this surplus inventory, $4.7 million had been used. That's an unaudited number, but it is the difference between two numbers that we have verified. Okay, the next, so we counted all of the items that were recorded in SAP that are considered surplus inventory. Remember, this is the residual amount from the $12 million in material that was purchased in 2002. It is available for use in projects and maintenance activities. Sometimes it's used and sometimes it's not. At this point, the materials planning unit in the Energy Department has control over the surplus inventory. So the adjustments that we can account for from our audit is to add $1,041,149.
This is exceptional.
And I'll tell you exactly what those items are. Unaccounted for adjustments would be a subtraction of about $36,000, leaving us with $2,495,363 of surplus equipment from 2002. That increase was primarily due to 5 different items. A transformer that had been charged to the Clark substation, but was still on hand. It had been charged to the project and never installed. $488,000. Transformer charged to the Avenue 48 substation, charged to the project, never installed. $489,000. A switchboard charge to the Shadow Hill sub, a switchboard charge to the mall substation, and various other equipment that had been charged to a number of different projects. And then equipment that was used in projects and was still on hand. Are there any questions there? So based on our audit, we have come up with a number of recommendations at this time. Number one, record all adjustments determined to be necessary to accurately account for the Energy Department's surplus inventory. And I've been informed that that will happen by the first of the year. And that will involve crediting some projects. Two, develop a standard operating procedure, SOP, to address issues relevant to the Energy Department's surplus inventory. Three, actively work to deplete the surplus inventory. Four, restrict access to surplus inventory stored in La Quinta. Anyone who validly has a key to a substation at the district has access to that inventory. Now, I realize it's big and it's hard to move, but if they want it, they can get it. Number five, establish, account for, and manage a separate inventory of spare equipment for use during emergencies. Number six, determine whether equipment in surplus inventory which is missing parts would be more economically repaired or scrapped. And lastly, number seven, conduct an audit of the Energy Department's surplus inventory in 2010, fourth quarter. Are there any questions there?
Do we know do we have an outline of inventory that can no longer be used because of different requirements?
The Energy Department has that information. It is not included in this report. That was not within the scope of this audit. Now, if you look on the last page of this report, it's your page 74. You'll see a schedule of surplus inventory counted on those 2 days, broken down by the two locations. We compiled this and included this in the report, and this will be what we will compare next year's field work to see if there's been progress made in using this equipment. Yes?
Is there a life time on these materials? Is there a time when they go bad or where they're no longer guaranteed, or being out in the elements, does it affect their effectiveness?
I understand that there is a lifetime on transformers that is just sitting. You'll have to ask the Energy Department for specifics on that.
Pardon me? You'll get it to me? Okay. All right. Well, I know that this... I can answer that for you. Yeah.
There is a warranty issue, of course, anything that we buy. The transformers do have a life. What you have to do is prepare the transformer, because transformers, as you well are aware, are shipped without oil. So to revive the transformer, there's a process that you actually vacuum it out and clean it out and then refurbish it. We did a very similar process when we took over the transformer from the Pacific and the ethanol. So they do fall out of warranty, and then you do have to refurbish them back. It's a process that's about $20,000 if they sit out there for 2 or 3 years.
Although it is true, we have some transformers in service that have been there quite some time. Is there... what's the oldest one in line right now?
Well, it's close to 100 years old. They never really go bad.
1908, right?
Yeah, what you'll have is, even though they're sealed, they have the ability to get moisture in there, so you have to go in and vacuum out and dry them out. And that's the process that usually you bring in.
My question I was leading to was that if you have the transformers installed and they're operating, do they last longer than just having the surplus just on the yard sitting there?
Well,
that was is there a difference in the time span? That's what I was getting to.
That's a tough question. Obviously, if you store it right and it's never used, the odds are that you'd be able to use it after, rather than it would have its full life. So my answer would be, if you store it right, it'll probably last longer than one that's being used.
Do we sell the excess for items that are no longer either because of different regulations or we don't need them, do we go out and sell them to like maybe to a third world country or something like that who could need to use it? I mean,
Across the board.
because the regulations are different there than it is here.
Typically our equipment competes very well with third world.
I think they have better equipment.
To answer the question is, if the equipment can no longer be used in any form or shape within our system, we then turn it over as salvage to stores. There is the instances where people will buy it. Typically, this is heavy equipment, very specialized to ours. We run a 92 kV system, which is unique to us in all the country. There's uniqueness in all the utilities that it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to go out and try to buy a transformer or a switch from another utility, because you're typically going to cost you more to modify to fit your system. Usually, by the time
I
we run
didn't mean for us to buy. I meant for us to sell who needed it, and at a discount, obviously.
We have had that where we've had some smaller transformers that have come in, and we no longer use that type. And we usually will send, I believe stores will actually sell them to a vendor that actually then he markets them out to other utilities.
So
We sell everything we can that is possible. In fact, when we retire the Brawley power plant, we hope to sell off.
and you probably have some buyers out there.
Yes, there is always somebody.
there is buyers for
There's
that.
always somebody.
So, Mr. Escalera, this report is very troubling, but I knew about this because I knew we had surplus equipment. So what you're telling me that what happened here is not going to happen in the future, correct?
I can guarantee you, one of the things that we recognized that there was issues in that area first part of the year. So we actually assigned, and we've been working on this issue prior to the audit. Actually, the area was assigned to our materials area in July. Much of the recommendations that have been made by Craig and his group are actually already being implemented. We have a list. Any project that goes out first goes through our salvage list. That comes out. And we now have looked at the majority of all of our equipment, and we're going through the evaluation. Do we keep it, or do we not repair it or salvage it out? So we're fully engaged in all of the recommendations that they've brought on.
Then I move to accept the Energy Department's surplus inventory audit report for November 20th, 2009. Good work, Greg.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Put in your motion to bring that back to us in 6 months? Or?
Oh, yeah, and bring it back to us in 6 months. Give us an update.
We recommend that we come back after we take the inventory in the fourth quarter of 2010,
That's fine.
about a year from now.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Bring it back in a year then. Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Please vote. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item C.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board.
Good afternoon.
So, our next report is about a claim for damages. Actually, it's a certain claim for damages for a Dental Plus office in India. As we did our work for this particular audit, I would like to tell you from the beginning that along with that, we will address the process of claims for damages in general. In July of 2009, a district crew was working at a job site, and the foreman called the Security and Claims Investigation Section to report a possible damage done to an equipment of the Dental Plus office during the course of connecting a service line. What happened, by accident, a 2008 voltage line was connected to a 120 voltage line. The crew member says that the red tape, the crew member who did the work commented that the red tape identifying the 2008 voltage line had fallen off, and as a result, he believed that he was connecting the correct voltage cables to each other. This mistake caused that two businesses to have their power service interrupted and caused damage to the equipment to one of the businesses, the Dental Plus office. As they should do, immediately the foreman of the crew informed Security Claims and Investigation, the CSI section, and they went right away out to the job site and did their assessment of the damages. A report was filed by the CSI investigator and on July 20th, 2009, and was subsequently the Dental Plus office filled out a claim for damages in a total estimate, with an estimate attached to the claim for $25,000. A memorandum sent in September 17, 2009, from the Loss Control Section to the manager of the Energy Operation and Infrastructure of Energy Department stated that the claims for damages has been reviewed by the district's legal counsel and approved on a basis of legal form. In that memo, responsible personnel recommended that the claim be acknowledged and that the $25,000 be authorized as a full and final payment pending the receipt of the properly executed release document. In October 20th of 2009, a check for $25,000 was issued payable to the owner of the Dental Plus office. Here are the findings during our field work. The IID does not have a written policy which defines the process to be followed when a claim for damages is submitted by an IID customer. At the present time, when a claim is submitted, the recommendation to approve or deny is placed on the board agenda, usually on the consent agenda. And as of November 17 of this year, we counted a total of 37 claims for damages. Out of those 37, one was recommended to be approved, and the rest of it was recommended to be denied. Also, during our work, we noted that the $25,000, when we were checking for the payment, we noted that this $25,000 was charged to the GL that is assigned for legal expenses. And so we talked to responsible personnel in finance and accounting, and they reassigned the payment to the proper GL number, which is the GL which is assigned for claim for damages. As of today, well, as of the November 19, the date of this report, there has been $198,441 charged to the GL designated for claims for damages. Out of 114 entries, which we counted in the SAP system, only 28 identify what is the specific number, what specific claim for damages. Each claim has a number assigned to it. So therefore, you can, anybody can go back in time and based on that number to see exactly what claim for damages we're talking about. At present time, it would be a daunting task to try to identify what claims were paid besides those 28. And also at the same observations we had on the GL for legal expenses, where there 967 entries, and out of those, only 49 have description of what kind of expenses was paid, IID versus or somebody else versus IID, so it's really hard to identify exactly what we paid for. So therefore, we recommend as the first step that we need to take to develop a written policy which defines the process to be followed to approve or deny a claim for damages. Also, we recommend that require a claim number to be entered in SAP R3 system in the specific field when using a check to pay for a claim, and also require responsible personnel to always charge claim for damage payments to the assigned general ledger number. So, and of course, it goes without saying the same thing for the legal expenses, the GL numbers to be used as they're assigned. So we can follow anybody easily and readily have the data available, how much you paid for claim for damages or how much you spent in legal fees during the year. Is there any questions?
No, it's very disturbing.
I agree with these recommendations, although I think there's some confusion about how we handle claims. First of all, the reason we put claims on the agenda for denial is primarily to give notice to the person who made the claim that the claim's denied, because it triggers a very specific statute of limitations. Under the government code, if you want to file a claim against a government entity, before you can sue the entity, you have to file a government claim. You have to do it in a very certain way. The claim has to be very specific in the way it's written. All the claims are routed through my office, and all I do is say this claim is approved as to form or not. If it's not approved as to form, that means it's not written the right way, and we don't have to deny it. And typically, we or SCI or sometimes the general manager's office will tell the person filing the claim it's in the wrong form. Sometimes it's late. Sometimes it doesn't say the right things. If it's in the correct form, if I approve it as to form, it doesn't mean I'm approving the claim. It just says they set a claim correctly. My intention is claims go and are generally the ones that are denied will go on the agenda because we want the world to understand that the claim has been denied, so everybody understands that that statute of limitation has been triggered. Now, the issue is if a claim is paid, it's paid within the spending of authority of different managers and supervisors, the 25,000, 50,000, 200. And typically, my office is not involved in that at all if they decide to pay a claim. The other problem is a lot of claims are claims, but they're not made in a formal government claim document. In other words, there's a dispute about a contract. There's a dispute about a payment. That you can call that a claim, but no claim has been filed. My understanding is, and it would make sense for us to get together and try to make this a little more consistent, is those claims are filed or are paid to the extent that they're, again, within the spending authority, just like any other expense. But there seems to be some confusion about what's a formal claim and what's not, and why we put them in the agenda. We put them in the agenda typically because when a claim is denied, we want to give notice to that person that the 6-month or 1-year time period is triggered for them to file an action. And we usually send them a letter too, but we put them in an agenda for that purpose.
So all the claims that are denied, they all appear on the agenda, every single one?
That's the intention, and the reason we do that, again, is so these people know the claim's been denied, so we can prove that we publicly we made public that denial, because later on they'll say, well, I didn't know. Well, it was done publicly. Your statute triggered.
You also send them a letter as well as posting it on the agenda?
Yes, we do.
And our report does not intend to address any of the governmental code or the form as how a customer files a claim. Our report simply, and for the purpose of our report, was simply looked at the claims that they were filed already and that they were included in the board agenda. And so what we're referring to when we're coming up with the policy is when and what claims are or not included in the agenda, because out of, like we said, out of the 114 entries, claim for damages paid, there were only 37 included in the agenda for 2009 as of year of date this report. We're not disputing any legal part of it or how it's what we do internally, how our claims, once they properly probably get to the legal office or to the department, how we handle that when they are included or when they are not included, spending limitation, when they're paid, when not they're paid, because we've seen claims for damages for $96, all the way up to $35 was the highest that we identified in SAP system as we did our field work. So what is the spending limit? That's what when we refer to for a policy is internally how we're going to handle claim for damages.
Dr. Brady, do you agree with the recommendations? And
Yes.
and
Yeah,
so
we'll be developing we have a work practice. I mean, we know how we do it. We just don't have it written down.
Okay.
And that's what we're referring to. You need to document it because staff changes and, you know, somebody who's here for 20 years uses that practice, but
Yes,
somebody who comes in tomorrow doesn't have a
when
policy
this
or a
issue-
process.
When this issue was brought to my attention, well, I asked, what is the policy? Well, we have no policy.
Yeah.
So I move to accept the auditor's audit report on claim for damages, and then to follow up with the recommendations and then come back. How much time do you need, Dr. Brady? 3 months, 6 months to come back with a follow-up?
If I may,
Go ahead.
because with the policy, it should be a process, and we are be working next year on internal controls. Some of our recommendations are actually linked to some of those internal controls, and for example, how they charge, you know, putting the claim number, claim for damages, go to the right GL number. So probably. With the policy, I don't know. The policy can be, it's going to be to Dr. Brady's.
So what's a good time frame? 60 days?
Come up with the policy, it's going to be Dr. Brady's, whatever he would like to know. But the process.
Second quarter. I mean, we'll bring it
The
back.
process should be probably towards the end of next year.
Come back with an update, second quarter of 2010.
With the policy.
Yes.
All right.
And-
Thank you.
And
I'll
Any
second
more
it, but I got a
questions?
question.
Yes, sir.
Betty, or Mr. Garber, are some claims then are never brought to the board? They're just taken care of?
A claim must be approved or denied within 45 days if it's deemed denied. If it's not approved or denied within 45 days, there's really no purpose to take it to the board. I know Gloria and I try to get the claims that are being denied taken to the board so there's no dispute about whether they're approved or denied. A lot of claims get settled, a lot, after they're denied in front of the board. That's just a procedural matter to make sure that the statute of limitations is triggered. The statute of limitations to file a lawsuit after a government claim is denied is much shorter than the normal statute of limitations on a claim. It's generally 6 months, occasionally a year. Statutes of limitations on general lawsuits are usually a year, 3 years, or 4 years. So that's the purpose. The purpose is procedural. I've had people complain, well, you settled my case, but it was denied in the agenda. I say, I know it was denied for a different reason. I know that you know, managers routinely settle small claims on a basis. That's a business decision. It's not a legal decision.
Okay, my question on that is if you're settling claims that are dealing with ratepayers who we're responsible to as directors, shouldn't we have a list or see what's getting taken care of around here?
I have absolutely no problem putting together a meaningful procedure. I don't think you want to take action on all these claims.
No, I didn't say that.
But if
I'd
you
like
want to
to
know
know
what's going on, sure.
Who's
Sure.
getting taken care of and
Well,
who's not getting taken care
I
of?
think HR and SCI needs to be involved in that process. I'd like to be involved in the process because I have concerns that are not intuitive to everybody else and anybody else. But
This claim here, this $25,000 claim, was it paid because some cage rattling was going on? Or how did this thing get
I know
taken care
nothing
of?
about this claim. I approved it as to form, passed it along. I had nothing to do with the settlement of this claim. I can't answer your question.
Well, I would just, Dr. Brady?
Yes.
As one director, you know, if it's a $96 claim that's settled or whatever it is, I would at least like to see a list because it deals with the public and we're elected by the public, so we know what's going on the list.
Well, we can
be aware.
Give you a periodic printout of, I mean, all the claims that are
quarterly,
charged
if-
against a particular account.
Quarterly basis would suffice.
Yeah.
Just keep us informed.
Well, and I'm sure you all recognize most claims, the great majority, is somebody calls up because they thought there was a surge on the line and it blew out a TV or some appliance, and those get settled very quickly.
And
Okay.
that's the most
I'd
common
like-
claim that you deny at every board meeting is Reg 16, is power surges that affect appliances that should be protected by surge protection. I'd say there's 5 of those in every board meeting.
Yeah. I'd like to see that list too. I was under the impression that all the claims were brought before us.
No, I only
Aware
claims.
that they were being settled.
I think the only claims, well, as a practice, I bring claims way below $200,000, but technically, under my understanding of the spending authority, the general manager or a line manager could approve a claim within their spending authority. That's the way it
That's
happened.
why we need a policy in place.
Yeah, that's the way it
So
was when I got here. Now, if I get a claim of any substance, even if it's 100,000 typically or 50,000, I bring them to the board. But that's only the ones that I'm handling on behalf of one of the departments. If I approve a claim as to form and forward it on, and they settle it and I don't know about it, I don't bring it to the board.
All right, please vote. All right, we'll go to the next item, adopt the schedule of audits to be conducted during the calendar year 2010.
Yes, good afternoon. If you'll turn to page 78, you'll see internal audits, 2010 audit schedule, and I'm here to get your approval on it or answer your questions if you have any concerning some of the audits that we're intending to do.
Looks pretty good to me.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Look at 3B.
Please vote.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to item 20, the water amendment to major work authorization covering the All-American Canal lining project.
As you know, I've been talking about that we've been going to mediation conferences in Oakland for both contractors. We've been back to the board earlier, back on the Ames-Kaufman. And this is in regards to a mediation conference that we had on 3 occasions in Oakland with the Kiewit Pacific contract. And basically, they were asking almost $9 million in a dispute over some issues relative to earth movement on the project. And through the mediation conference, it was settled at $5.5 million. And what this is asking today is to increase the total amount of the major work authorization by the $5.5 million to make it a total of, I'm looking for the number, I'm sorry, I didn't have it written down.
134.1.
304.5, and San Diego voted last Tuesday to accept that.
This board already approved the settlement in closed session about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was announced in open session. These are all eligible project costs to be paid by San Diego.
And so I just need to redo this where we have the spending authority to pay it, and we have to pay it, I believe, as soon as the settlement agreement is finalized.
Yeah,
Which should be the first week.
Next couple days, the settlement agreement
So it'll
will
be done, so we need to pay it by our agreement as soon as the agreement's
I
done.
move for approval of the amendment to the
Second.
NWA.
Any other questions? Please vote. Item 21, adoption of new procurement of goods and service policy.
Mr. Abadi wants to take a break.
Trying to remember when it was, Director Body. It was a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
Something like that.
It was a week or 2 weeks ago that Director Buddy and members of staff got together to finalize or review additional changes to the procurement of goods and services policy, and a couple of key points to identify in the policy itself. On your page 89, Section 5 policy, the last statement under that on the page there identifies that the purchasing agent is responsible for creating and bringing back to the board specific procedures and practices, because again, if we try to put all that information into a policy, that would make this a rather lengthy document. However, the expectation is that the purchasing agent will be the person responsible for creating policy or procedures on management of goods and services procurement activities, and with the expectation that those things would be brought back to the board for their approval to be followed by staff. Another key item is actually the last item, which is on page 94, section I, which is enforcement. It is new to the policy, consistent with what we did with the MWA policy, that we are including enforcement for violation of the policy. The specific changes that we incorporated into this version, if you look on page 91, on item number 4, we struck the word character. Again, on page 91, section D, item number 3, added the and board for approval of outside legal counsel forensic experts and services must be submitted to the office of the general counsel and board for approval. On page 92, section E, second paragraph, added the word strictly, so that the competition of single brand or single source is strictly prohibited. On page 93, section G, second to the last paragraph in the page, we struck out consulting services and made it consistent for all contracts. So a contract may be amended once under this exemption. Prior to this meeting, there was, at lunch, I was reminded that there was supposed to be some other language, so I would like to introduce that language into this document as we talk about it for agreement. Consistent with the MWA policy, I'd like to add in a piece under section 5, under authorization. So adding underneath the paragraph where it says general manager, there'd be a new section which, again, consistent with the MWA policy, would say service agreements, contracts, dollar amounts will require approval as specified in the following approved signature authorization limits. 1, board of directors greater than $200,000. 2, general manager between $50,000 and $200,000. 3, department manager up to $50,000, thereby clarifying the authorization spending limits. The other change, which really isn't a change, I think it just changes a little bit of the clarification. In the paragraph for the general manager, currently the last sentence reads, agreements may at the discretion of the general manager without board approval be increased one time per agreement as long as the amount do not exceed $200,000 in any one contractual year. Would like to change that to agreements may at the discretion of the general manager and without board approval be increased as long as the amounts do not exceed $200,000 in any one contractual year and only one time per agreement. It's basically the same language, but I think for clarity purposes, it adds, puts the sections of the sentence in a better sequence, so it's easier to understand.
Well, I want to thank Mr. Campbell. With those changes, I'll move to approve.
Second.
Any other comments?
Why weren't they in the document? When did they get put in? Why weren't they in this complete document? I mean, you've had time to work on this thing, and I know you met, so.
Mental lapse on my part. I take full responsibility that when we had the meeting, Director Body did say that he would be interested in having the spending limits in there. And, while we took notes at the meeting, it was missed.
You saying it slipped your mind, and then when this document came out, Director Body told you that they weren't in there.
He reminded
supposed to be in there?
He reminded me at lunchtime that was supposed to be in there, and I added. So I'm adding that section in.
All right, thank you.
I think you put together a pretty good document.
It's taken quite a while, and it's involved a lot of people, and certainly do appreciate the effort of those that have been involved with putting this thing together.
Any other questions? Please vote. All right, we're going to take a 2-minute break. All right, we'll reconvene and move on to item number 22, finance.
Yes, Mr.
Adoption of resolution covering budget staffing plan for calendar year 2010.
Yeah.
Put the mic.
He's
On
on
now.
vacation. He's been on vacation. Oh, there we go. Okay, Mr. President, members, you have before you resolution number 44, 2009, which is a concerning the approval of budget and staffing plan for the complete budget of the district. I'd like, just by way of history, you'll recall that 2 years ago, before I got here, the budget took a long time to get done. In fact, went all the way into that fiscal year, into 2008, before it was approved. And it required, among other things, the board passing successive resolutions so that the district's business could continue and we could expend funds. In 2009, we got it in under the wire at I think it was the last meeting of December. And this year we've had an accelerated schedule, on schedule for the most part. We went through 3 budget workshops, some individual meetings on updates. And I think we overall, and I'm talking about this October 20th budget plan that we've been working from. We've met or exceeded our goal of holding the line on the overall budget process. They're balanced budgets. There's no energy increase. There was a increase as authorized by the board earlier this year on water. And we did decide at the staff level, given that the base documents for this budget are literally thousands of pages, that if every time we made an improvement in the budget as we went through the budget workshops, we would have been we probably would have cut down a forest with this. So rather than do that, Mr. Broking and I are recommending that the board approve this resolution, specifically, though, noting that there will be a January budget amendment, which I believe almost 100% of the amendments will reduce staffing, reduce the cost of the budget on both the energy and the water side. So these are all good changes. And some of the things that aren't in this budget, there are significant reductions in staffing that have not been accounted for, additional economies through the implementation of the operational analysis that we've been doing all this year, significantly enhanced water revenues resulting from the price reset that the board just approved with San Diego on the transfer water, which will, and as Mr. Garber has mentioned, we will get a $6 million check as revenue to the water department by December 31st. We'll have another $1 million towards capital programs in October of next year, and just the bump up in water, the price of per acre foot of water will result in another $5.5 million over what we have in this budget in terms of revenue. So $50 to $60 million more revenue than what we show in this. And also we expect, frankly, not only a January budget amendment, but as we roll through the rest of the district in 2010, I expect we'll be coming back with budget amendments that will show adjustments, hopefully further reductions in staffing because of our operational analysis. So for all of those reasons, I am recommending that you approve this resolution. I would like to, for the members of the public, indicate that we put another whereas in the resolution. The board has a copy of that, but I'll read the additional whereas. It says, whereas further refinements to the budget document that reflect upfront revenue from IID San Diego Water Authority price redetermination settlement and actual savings realized through the ongoing reduction in force initiative will be presented to the board in the form of an amendment in January 2010. Three reasons that I recommend that you pass the resolution here. Number one, it is a balanced budget. We will be amended. So on its face, it is a balanced budget with no energy rate increase. Secondly, IID's bond disclosure requirements direct the district to certify before January 1st that a budget has been approved for the next fiscal year. So it is a financial requirement, and that affects our 1993, 2003, 2008 energy bonds and our 2001 pension obligation bonds. And then thirdly, as a practical matter, and I've already mentioned this, if the board decides not to approve this and wait until June, we will have to bring back some sort of spending resolution that the board has to update because since we don't have a budget in place, we will have to, in order to expend funds to run the business. So with that's my recommendation.
I've got a question. Okay, so this resolution is not just to keep the district afloat. It is, in fact, approving the budget. Is this the budget we're talking about?
Yes, sir, that is.
Okay, and on the layoffs that are taking place in some areas, it's basically a reorg and new positions created.
Yes.
Have those positions been created so that we don't have a lag time from employees getting an RIF and then being employed in their new position?
Yeah, well, and that will be trued up. And do you want to talk about that, Mr. Jay? And that will be trued up in our proposed amendment.
Yeah, those new positions, which are part of, you've approved the reductions in force and the new positions, which will partially offset that. We'll come back to you with the first appropriate meeting, I think, in January for your approval. Although, as the general manager has said, the numbers in terms of the budget, in terms of reductions, total reductions in staff and total dollars will actually be improved. We're leaving a 90-day lag time in the implementation of any reductions in force. We're preparing to post those new positions as soon as the board approves them, hopefully reviews them and approves them in January, and that gives us sufficient time to allow people to compete for those positions. However, competition will be on a merit basis throughout the Energy Department, with the Energy Department employees having the first crack at it, but you got to be the best candidate to get those jobs.
So what you're saying is the numbers, the financial numbers are there, but the staffing patterns don't align to it. Is that?
They're not trued up in terms of the replacement positions, as Mr. Jain has explained. In terms of the dollars, I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, but in terms of the dollars, there are sufficient dollars to cover all the staffing that Energy contemplates.
And what day is this true-up going to come?
Well, we want to bring it as soon as we can. It may be most likely the second or third board meeting in January, so within 30 days.
Will there be a vote taken on that day as well?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And as I mentioned in my remarks, it is my hope that we will be bringing back other amendments to the budget that improve the budget throughout 2010, and you will vote on each of those as well.
I have a question on that. Now, you mean proposed amendments as we continue to find more efficiencies, or amendments that have been discussed in the last 3 board meetings budget review? Because I know there's a lot of stuff that was being talked about in the last 3 budget meetings, but if I felt leaving the meeting that this board never really took a poll on what they wanted to see changed or not changed.
Well, when we bring back, to answer your question, there are a number of things that we're still studying. In fact, in the Energy Department, there are a number of things that we could have recommended, but we need a little bit more time. We may be bringing back a mid-year budget amendment on additional economies or efficiencies.
To give you an example, we've been taking a look. One of the recommendations in the management analysis is to go to smart metering, automated meter reading, which would certainly have an impact on our meter reading force, as well as an investment in meters. We currently have a top-level task force that's finalizing a report on that, which we hope to bring to you sometime later in January, maybe early in February, that will do the cost-benefit analysis. You need to look at the numbers to say, how much are we going to invest, how much are we going to save, and is it worth it? One of the advantages, of course, to smart metering is we'll be able to put in two-way metering that will allow us to give the customer many more options in demand-side management. That was a recommendation in the analysis. It takes quite a bit of internal work, and our task force, which includes technical staff from not just energy, but also from IT and from finance and from other areas in the IID group, is just about ready to make their recommendation, and we're ready to write that up.
Well, I guess my question was gearing more toward, that was good, thank you. But the recommendations that the board reflected to you prior to our discussions, that discussions such as what the individual board members ask of you in person, and if the rest of the board, in other words, if you're going to bring all these issues in the final or in the next with the amendments, especially the one in January, I would think that we would probably have to have a meeting in the first week or second week of January on these individual issues that I think the individual directors want to see in that last amendment in January.
Well, as a practical matter, you're absolutely right. What we'll do is we'll bring it to you for information at workshop format, because we're not going to make any changes that any of you 5 directors want unilaterally. We're going to bring it back for a full vote.
What would be the difference of just adopting this as a first interim budget?
The resolution, that's basically what you're doing, but we've added for your consideration in the resolution that, we're specifically saying we're coming back with.
Yeah,
With
it's basically saying the same thing, but this gives us a document where the resolution doesn't.
Actually, I think the resolution does, but it does for purposes of our bond obligations.
Mr. President, I'd like to move for approval and adoption of resolution number 44-2009, which is the budget and staffing plan for the electric, water, and centralized services departments fiscal year ended 2010.
As amended?
As amended, yes.
Second that.
Dr. Berry,
Yes.
the reallocation of the resources associated with these new jobs, all those departments involved, probably centralized services, support services, stuff like that. When's that going to be? Is that part of this true-up?
That's part of the true-up, absolutely, because as you say, it does reach back into finance, centralized services, and other HR.
Well, that's what. It's 3 weeks from now, more or less, and it's been 5 weeks, I think, since that resolution in November was passed, or 4 weeks. I can't remember what day. Sometime in November. I mean, one more week we have another meeting at the end of this year. Those numbers couldn't be adjusted and those things, because I'd like to kind of see it when I'm voting on.
Well, as a practical matter, there's just not enough time to get it done in a week.
What, 2 days?
Yeah, well, actually, it's...
1 day.
It's very few days.
Yes.
I'm not sure, there's a little confusion here, but the management analysis, I think you're looking at the staff support services, which are affected. The management analysis team is right now working with Human Resources, HR, and is probably in the next month or so will start to wrap up that report. You will get that. It will make some recommendations. You will consider those recommendations, and I think that's what Dr. Brady was talking about is, as the year goes along, you're going to get more true-ups to where we're headed. It's an ongoing dynamic process. It didn't just stop a few months ago or today or tomorrow. As soon as we're done with HR, we're going to move on to probably administrative services and look at the entire all of these support services have a cost factor on both the water budget and the energy budget. And that study will also take 4 or 5 months. I mean, it's not done overnight, and it has to be done with great care before it's brought back to you. The energy portion of it took us 6 months before we finalized it and brought it back to you. So I think what we're saying is that continual effort to try to improve efficiency is going to be going on, and probably will go on for the next 2-3 years, because we're at that point. I think Dr. Brady wants to look at water and look at some of the other. I know the management in water wants to take a look at their own operations and do the same thing there.
Well, I think the perception, Mr. Jan, is that not a definite budget is always kind of etchy and sketchy, and it makes a lot of people nervous. But having this new whereas entered into the resolution today, I think that was some ongoing concern on some of the directors from what I've been hearing today. And at the same time, I haven't seen a list of or a poll of particular issues from this board, again, on the budget. I know there was some issues talked about in our meetings, but I don't know what exactly wanted to be changed, and if there was 3 votes to be changed. And because of that, and because of the bond issue that we need for our bonds, I think it's going to be important for us to pass this today. And at the same time, the board always has the opportunity or the power to say, you know what, I think I'm just going to put on the table a 10% reduction in everything. So, I mean, directors, I think we always have that option if you guys don't feel comfortable with the way our staff is spending money.
You know, Director Sanchez, in my view, the budget is a living document. It's not set in stone. It's a workable document. And as we go month to month, there'll be changes. So it's more like a guide. And so I feel very comfortable adopting this budget today. It's not set in stone. It's not meant to be set in stone.
All right. Any other questions?
Orby Hanks, Brawley, California, and I brought some my stuff along. I couldn't borrow Danny's briefcase because he doesn't have one. I would hope you guys would put that in his budget so he can get a briefcase, so maybe I can borrow it. But anyway, what I'm hearing is that this, again, is a tentative budget, that there'll be other things picked up, and I gather from what Anthony Sanchez is saying, Director Sanchez, I'll get it right in a minute, is saying that there are questions there that have probably come to him and others of us have asked, wondering if that is going to be addressed in that budget. with the situation that exists with us with this QSA thing, and we're kind of in the dark, not knowing what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. But what I was wondering, if we adopt a budget and whatever, will that budget cover some of the contingencies and the possibilities that are coming up in this lawsuit, or whether we're going to be sitting here waiting for another 2 or 3 years to really have any kind of movement? Those are things that I didn't really find here when I was going through it. But I didn't go through the situation with a fine-tooth comb. If it is adopted, as I understand it, there will be a printout or whatever will come to the board and to the public so we can look at it. I, for one, am not an expert at anything other than making a fool out of myself. So when I come up here, that's what I'm asking, something that we can take and get our hands on, take a look at it. And in so doing, the number 21, that you adopted a resolution there, I think that has a part that should be included in 22. I asked about a de facto employee that was has turned into a consultant, and there's some discussion about the difference between an employee and a consultant. There are some issues out there that I would hope the board would take a close look at, and that is, I believe it's what you call a 1090 conflict of interest, something about a 700 that has to do with your holdings and whether there's any problems there. You talked about water cards for the growers. I would hope that you would give the public the same courtesy in checking your employees to see what their connections are outside the area. The IID, the Imperial Valley, is getting a lot of complaints, discussion, whatever, on the number of people that have come in lately. Probably very, very good people. Dr. Brady has assured me that Dr. Kajian, I don't know whether that's right for your name or not, Ed. Yeah, okay, I know what you mean. And he has assured me that you have some of the answers, and consequently I'll be looking at to you personally to give me some of the answers that I could not find in 27 years in education. So with that in mind, I think just as one member of the public, I would hope if you do adopt this thing that there will be a specific come out where we can look at it all in one pile, not 3 or 4 different meetings and what happened in one meeting and something happens in the next meeting and whatever. As a member of the public, I would like the opportunity to have it all together. Thank you.
One last question. Is this going to be part of the record of today's meeting, or is this separate?
Well, it's all part of the record. Yes, sir.
All right. Please vote. I will go to financial report, October 31st, 2009.
Good afternoon, directors. Staff is here to ask for to request the board to acknowledge and hopefully accept the financial statements for the Imperial Irrigation District up through October 31st, 2009. Some of the highlights of it are, for instance, for the water department, its debt service coverage is a little bit lower than what was forecasted, sitting at about 1.24 versus the 2.75%. This is mainly due to the lack of the land sales that's causing that. As far as the, so that's really the big highlight for the water department. Also it's kind of the opposite for the energy department. As you can see, their debt service requirement is sitting at about 4 times what was actually anticipated, which is good. And that's basically due to about the $47 million in decrease of the energy and purchase power expenses. So the only other thing I wanted to really highlight on those, I think that was really it, was also for the water capital. It's about 9.4 under budget, and this is basically just due to the Caltrans projects, which is from the state cutting the revenue sources. So the water department didn't get started up on those water projects till the end of the 2009 year end. So,
okay, Mr. President, I move to acknowledge receipt of the financial report for October 31st, 2009 by the Finance Department.
Any questions? Please vote. Item 24, energy risk
Vote?
management.
No vote.
Vote again? Oh, there it is.
Energy risk management report for third quarter of 2009.
okay. Let me just get my stuff in order here. Basically, before I get into that third quarter energy risk management report update, what I kind of wanted to discuss is the Board of Directors, the last time I was here for the second quarter update, had requested that a third party review the revised energy risk management policy. And I just want to give the board a quick update. Risk Management Incorporated, which specializes just in energy risk management and counterparty creditworthiness within the industry, has looked at our policy, and basically they've come back with some recommendations, but basically they're saying overall it's a good policy. The only recommendations they do have is on some of the reporting structures that goes to the board. So right now, the Energy Risk Management Group is kind of vetting through those reports to see what they would like to accept going forward to the board. So that's where we're at right now. We're hoping to come back to the board with those recommendations either January, February of the beginning of the year, once the risk management goes through those reports. So is there any questions on that?
And you, like Mrs. Valenzuela, you told me also that I think you had Moss Adams looking at the financial portion.
Yes, and I've got with them. They have not finished looking at it. They're going to look more from the internal controls. I will. They were supposed to get back with me, and I'll have to get with them to find out why they have not. But really, I think the real experts in it is probably Risk Management Incorporated. That is all that they do, is energy, natural gas management of prices and counterparty creditworthiness. So. Okay, so then we'll kind of go through the third quarter update, which is through September 30th of 2009. Part of the policy requires that the board gets a summary of the risk management meetings that have happened in that quarter, the power strategy sheet, and the monthly portfolio reports, and a compliance report. Just let the board know that the Energy Risk Management Group has met once during that third quarter, and it was basically to approve the amended risk policy that was then taken to the board in October. The power strategy sheet, which I've kind of tried to do something a little bit different. It's in your handout, but it basically kind of gives you the net short and long as far as capacity and natural gas requirements. If you look, I've just got this in here. Really, the only thing that that I want to make the board aware of is the short positions. We are a little bit short in the summer of 2009, in the summers versus the winters, which is kind of just our type of business. I mean, we have such our summer load just goes up so much, it doubles compared to our winter load. What you're seeing there is in summer of 2010, we're about 15, on average, about 15 megawatts short, so we're in pretty good shape going in there. And Also in 2011, we're short about 25 megawatts. Then you see out there in 2012, it gets up there to about a little over 200. So what you should see is with the Energy Resource Management Group, what you'll see is them start locking in some of the, that's what they're busy working on right now, is some of the 2011 and some of the 2012 positions, which like the repowering of the unit El Centro 3, and some of those things will help with those positions. Let me go back here. So, and as far as the listing of the energy and natural gas term trades, there's basically 3 energy term trades made during the third quarter, and that was just to move energy around. They had them at one transmission point, and they moved it to another so that we could take that energy in, bring it in. There's also 2 natural gas term trades made, which increased the 2010 procurement from 77 to 80% procured, which is good. So we're right kind of where we want to be for 2010. 2011, they also put in a couple more positions, which took us from 31 to 44% hedged for the summer of 2011. As far as the Yucca generation plant, there's nothing hedged for 2010 or 2011, and that's just basically because right now the resource. Imperial Irrigation District is unable to take physical delivery of the gas and take it to Yucca, so we've been doing some financial trades, and the resource planning is been busy kind of negotiating, trying to get a transportation agreement in so that we can actually take physical delivery of that gas.
I guess that's my question when I saw the financial trade. When is that pipe going to be done?
The pipe is currently planned for in-service in March 2010. Yesterday we had a bidders meeting with essentially all the gas suppliers and schedulers doing business in the Southwest, looking for scheduling services on that line and looking at the possibility of a long-term, by long-term, 12 to 18 months, gas supply arrangement for that facility.
Yeah, I don't remember. Were we 100% of all the capacity, or is there an open season? Or are we just a percentage of some of the capacity? Or
we're a very small percentage of the pipe. This is a new line that goes from Ehrenberg, which is in northwestern Arizona, down to Ogilvie, which is on the California-Mexican border, down to Algodones, which is just south of the Mexican border, where it interconnects with another pipeline going east-west to the new LNG facility in Baja, and then it continues over to the Yucca facility. We're taking deliveries from Ehrenberg to Algodones to Yucca. Because this is an interstate pipeline, which is totally different from the distribution pipelines that we have our service on here, we have different scheduling and nominating procedures. Here, if we need gas for El Centro 2, we just burn it, and so long as we put in the right amount of gas during the day, then we have no imbalance penalties. Since we're dealing off the El Paso pipeline, we actually have hourly penalties. So we've determined this hour we're going to use 10,000. We schedule 10,000 but burn 12,000. There is the possibility of very extreme penalties associated with that. So we're working around those penalties. We won't accept them. That's what the scheduling services are for. It's not something that we have the capability in-house of doing. That was the RFP meeting that we had yesterday, and then I'm droning on, aren't I, sir? I think that answers your question.
May I say something? From when I arrived here as interim energy manager, I'm still interim, I guess, 15 or 16 months ago, where we were hemorrhaging money in the energy department. We are really on solid financial shape. I think the risk management plan that the board adopted has a major responsibility or share for that. our outlook is extremely favorable. All the news you're hearing is good news. Yeah, there are issues and there are problems, but it's all good news. We're going to be developing and becoming a leader in geothermal development on our own land, our own IID-owned land in the Imperial Valley. The El Centro plant will be the most efficient plant that we have built, and frankly will have been built in Southern California in the last 20 years. We are on our way. We haven't had a rate increase in I don't know how many years. We don't expect one this year or next year. We are on our way to becoming the low energy electric energy provider in California. That's our goal. And I think that when you look at this risk management plan that you adopted over a year ago, that has a major share of the credit for that.
2 quarters in a row, and no exceptions for Dr. Koch.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Doesn't
Pretty
have to
good.
stand up, yeah.
Mr. President, I'd like to acknowledge receipt of the 2009 third quarter risk management reports.
So I got it.
Thank you.
Good work.
Any questions? Please vote.
And Mr. President, just
Thank
to
you.
remind the board and the public, there'll be a board meeting 10 a.m. next Monday, the 28th.
It's not
Not 28th? Yeah.
next month.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Special meeting. Special meeting.
Special meeting, the
One
28th.
item only, as I understand it right now, local entity.
Each board member has the paperwork on what the allocation is to the farm service providers. It's been handed out to them.
Okay. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.